Hi, this is Dan Devlin for the Detective Dan Devlin Show, Honorable People, Honorable Nation. Welcome to our show. Today's program is titled Impeachment and the Lawyer's Shell Game. Now, this is kind of a multiple things that we're going to cover in this particular program. Currently, the President of the United States is being examined or investigated, whatever term you like to use, in a House of Representatives hearing on impeachment. And if you listen to the individuals who are pushing this impeachment, you can be very confused as to what actually is going on. Impeachment is a very serious mechanism used by the legislature, the House of Representatives and the Senate, in order to remove someone who is in the presidency and doing things that are destructive or unconstitutional, that are of such great gravity that it's necessary to remove him from office. Now, I'm going to set that aside for a few moments, and I'm going to explain about a number of things in the human process in understanding issues like impeachment or what governmental officials are doing. And you see today, I'm dressed in my Western wear. I keep reminding people I'm here in Western New York, and I have a Western hat on, and I say, gee, some people call it a cowboy hat. Well, generally referred to as a Western hat. We're in Western New York, so go get yourself a Western hat. Clothing gives us some indication of what people are about. If you just see me, and I happen to have a full beard, or the start of a full beard now, normally if you've been watching my programs, I may just have a mustache or I might have a smaller beard. All of these things are changeable. And as I take my hat off, now, if no one saw me before, they would see me with this Western hat and they would think that I have a full head of hair underneath that hat. But as you can see, and those who know me, you know that there's not much hair up there, at least not much useful hair. So things like a simple hat, or this is some people would call it more of a rodeo type shirt, and I do have rodeo characters, on this shirt. And so immediately people would get the idea, well, this guy's from out west, and I've spent a lot of time out west, and I love horses, and I love all the things associated with them. Hats for me are important because I have very little hair. I used to have red hair. And because I have light skin, you want that shade that a full-brimmed hat provides. I have long sleeves, and as someone with lighter skin, to protect yourself from the sun, it's wise to have longer sleeves. Now, when I do other programs, I wear a suit and tie. And the camera can only see so much. And oftentimes I may have jeans and then a regular suit coat and a tie. Well, you never see those jeans. And I know other people doing programs, they may even wear shorts. But I say this because it's about appearances. And the appearances that we see result in what we think. And we may take someone who wears a Western shirt and a Western hat, for example, and we might not think of them as someone who is not only knowledgeable, but very concerned about certain aspects of government, for example. The reality is that many of the people who wear those types of things are very concerned about what's happening, and they have different views. They tend to be independent people, independent thinkers, who have basic principles, whether it's from the Bible, whether it's from the Constitution, or other laws, or standards that they try to live by. Once you get into more of the city environment, even the suburban environment, you have people who are less likely to be independent. Try to get them to use various tools, simple saws, drills. Get them to fix their car. And now it's getting more difficult because with all the computers, it's hard for anybody to do it unless they have all this fancy equipment. But it wasn't too long ago that almost anyone, especially in the rural communities, almost everyone knew the basics of how to fix their car and other things as well. But it's important to know that people who are more self-sustainable and able to do a lot of things for their own security and their own safety, for their own food production, in contrast with the people who really the alternative for them food-wise is to go to a different grocery store. They don't know how things are grown. Oftentimes, I've asked children in inner cities, where do chickens come from? And the answer is Kentucky Fried Chicken. They have no idea that that was a living animal that had to be killed in order for them to have Kentucky Fried Chicken. So, the reason I go into all this is because this is the foundation of figuring out our society and the problems that we have within society. Now, the program today is about the process of impeachment, and it's important to know who is running this impeachment process. Most of the individuals who are involved are lawyers. I pointed out in other programming that it's important to understand that lawyers need something to happen in order to justify their existence and in order to earn money, for their family and the things that they want to do. So, in the case of impeachment, even those who are opposed to this impeachment process because it may appear to be certainly unneeded and a travesty in that process to be used for merely an opinion of a conversation between the President of the United States and a foreign leader. But when we understand the intellect of lawyers, and we understand that in order to justify their own existence and to be seen as the important people they believe that they are, they're willing to go along with any controversy because it allows them to use their skills, twist and turn the words or the observations of the things that actually occurred, and to many be seen as a very, very important and intellectually wise individual who is needed for this process. Simplicity is the enemy of lawyers. Complication is a tool that they use in order to manipulate individuals and processes in order to achieve the goal that they wish to achieve. We, the people, are smarter than that, or at least should be smarter than that. We need to understand, and I believe that most of the people at least the thinking people in the United States, understand what is going on with this impeachment process. The House of Representatives, the Democrats therein, have claimed that the president is trying to undermine the power and authority of the other branch of government, which is the Congress, specifically the House of Representatives, simply because he would like representation and he would like to be able to know that fairness is taking place in the process. In reality, I think the opposite is occurring. What is happening is that members of the House of Representatives are trying to steal, if you'll accept that, the authority of the president to do the job that he is sworn and placed into office to achieve. Any one of us could have a conversation about almost anything and have someone else come in and say, oh, you said this, or why did you use this term? Why didn't you say it this way? And if you're married, you know that your spouse would probably be very happy to tell you how you should speak about almost anything. Now, I know all the wives are going to get on me now, but the reality is that we all speak differently, and we have different objectives. The idea of government and the job of the presidency is often to negotiate things that are best for the United States. In order to do that, in almost all the interactions between people in government and elsewhere, there is something that an official wants to achieve, simply for the safety of the people of the United States. We need to have conversations with people around the globe. And sometimes we need to say, look, we need you to do this, and we are not going to cooperate with you. We may withhold funds that we're giving to these people. And there are laws in place that hold political officials accountable if they don't make sure that that is a wise investment and there's no corruption involved in that process. But yet when President Trump does this with a foreign leader who has indicated that they're on the same page, their mutual objective is to limit the corruption that has been running rampant in this case, another country. Yet we have a group of Democrats who have sworn before President Trump even took office to impeach this man. They've tried other times, and they will continue, and if this objective fails, their objective is really to destroy the credibility of the president or to place in other people's mind the suspicion of the president. Their ultimate goal is to remove him from office, but if that fails on this count, you can bet everything you have that they are going to try something else, because they're not about serving the people who they're elected to serve. They're about achieving only what they want, regardless of what it takes in order to achieve that. So they are not there to work with Republicans in order to find solutions to problems that we have. They have determined that their way, the liberal way, the progressive way, the Democrats' way, is the only way that is acceptable. And they are not going to cooperate with anyone unless those Democrats get their way. there are times where you have to dig in and you have to say, and I've done it myself, said this is an issue where we cannot go in the direction that you want to go. It would be wrong of me to do it. And I'll use an example. You know, or you should know from watching this program, that the Second Amendment of the United States, which says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's really a pretty simple statement. And I've gone into some length about that particular amendment to the Constitution. But lawyers in particular like to pull at that, and they say, well, you don't know the meaning of the word militia or the word security or to bear arms. What does that actually mean? And here in New York State is a great example. They have twisted and turned that and even just contrived other means to overcome that requirement of the Second Amendment. And oftentimes, and I've mentioned lawyers in the title of this program, this is the domain of lawyers. And you see that oftentimes, most often I would say, even at the executive branch within states, that individual, the governor, is a lawyer. And most of the legislators in most of the states are lawyers. And they know how to make sure that lawyers continue to make money. And so they don't want simplicity. They hate the Second Amendment because it is pretty clear. And the fact of the matter is that the idea is that security is important, and that's the middle portion of that. Security is important, and because that's important, you need to have the tools, which happen to be firearms, or arms as referred to in the Constitution. Why? So you can independently have the means to be secure, and if need be, get together with others in what we would call a militia in order to combat whatever the threat is that would disregard your security and cause you, your family, and other innocent other ones to become victims unjustly of violent action. Even my opponents, when we lay it out, they agree with that principle. But because they have other things that they want to achieve, they try to destroy this, because while they themselves understand and would want that security and the means to have it, they try to destroy that Second Amendment because they don't want you to be secure. And why wouldn't they want you to be secure? Understand that our nation is run by lawyers. I know the president isn't a lawyer, but he relies on them for advice. And one of the reasons he's in the trouble that he's in is because lawyers want to chip away and try to remove power from him because he's more like you. He's an individual who can see the facts, see a solution, articulate how we can reach that solution, and then work to achieve it. But someone who benefits, and I remind people, without a situation that creates pain and misery and suffering and complication, without situations like that, why would you call a lawyer? If your business was running well and you didn't have all these regulations that are complex and controversial, why would you need a lawyer to call him in for your business when you can make the decisions that need to be made on your own. It's only when you get into this minefield that is created by people in legislatures, most of whom are lawyers, who write these provisions, these laws, these regulations, so they're complicated enough so they can be argued over, which requires lawyers to be proficient in that area of the law. And so while they produce nothing, this manufacturing company, this food service company, has to pay them to argue about the things that easily could be solved between these companies and even other representatives of government. So this impeachment process is a shell game. Those of you who are not familiar with a shell game, they used to use shells from walnuts, I believe, mostly, and they would put a pea or some small stone under one of the walnuts, and we would have 3 of them in front of us, 3 of those walnut shells. And somebody would move these shells around, and then they would have you guess where that pea is. Now, it's only under one of those shells. And so if you didn't pick it correctly, then you lost your money. If you did choose it correctly, maybe they would pay you something or you'd win a little prize. Lawyers need a shell game. They're about shell games. They're about fictitious, false representations of things. I started out with a Western hat on and a Western shirt, and I'm not going to take the time to change now, but you can see our other programs, and I have a suit and tie on. Unfortunately, and the reason that I don't wear that other than when I feel compelled to, is because many of the biggest criminals in American society and people deceiving the American public, they wear this facade, they masquerade as some honorable person by wearing a suit and tie. Be aware of the objective of many to give, their objective is to give you the impression that they are honorable people. You know that this program is honorable people, honorable nation. And in order to be honorable, you have to do honorable things. Being involved in a shell game is not an honorable activity. I could tell you many things about lawyers, and there are some good people who are lawyers. Unfortunately, they agree to be part of this convoluted, this system that allows such manipulation so they can get the outcome that they want. And remember, in these controversies, oftentimes there's not just 1 or 2 lawyers involved. There are 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40. Look at the number of lawyers who would be involved in this process in this so-called impeachment hearing. And these people are trained to use deception, to manipulate words and the meaning thereof. Now the word is bribery. And so they're trying to show that President Trump was trying to bribe another official from another country in order to get them to do what? Really, what he wanted them to do is to weed out the corruption in their own country. Now, yes, it may have involved people from this country, and many people think that it was aimed at another presidential candidate, former Vice President Biden, and his son, who were involved, and candidate Biden is on tape indicating that he would withhold funds from that government unless they fired a prosecutor who was looking at the activity of Joe Biden's son. Now, the President of the United States has an obligation to see that the laws are faithfully executed. It doesn't say if it's a competitor or someone who was a former official that you have no authority to do that. And too often, people who are in office skate on the crimes that they're involved in because other officials understand that they wouldn't want to be investigated for what they've been doing. But President Trump pursued an honorable goal, is to halt the corruption and to know about the corruption that already occurred. He has not only a right, but an obligation, a constitutional obligation to do that. And the Republicans in the House of Representatives have been essentially silenced by the Democrats and are somewhat helpless and certainly limited in coming to the defense of the president. But those Democrats wish to keep any information about one of their people, a Democrat, Joe Biden, from coming to the surface. And President Trump has merely understood that he has an obligation, and it's not halted simply because the person involved in this corruption is a former vice president and now a presidential candidate. Our show is too short many times. I want to point out quickly that these things are vital. You need to consider who is running things in the United States and now controlling this impeachment process. It's not only Democrats, but it is lawyers who are Democrats. Be aware of that. God bless you all. Realize whether you're wearing a suit or you're wearing a Western shirt and hat, think about what people are saying and do your best to do the honorable thing and make sure they do that honorable thing as well. God bless you all. I hope you have a great day. This is Dan Devlin for the Detective Dan Devlin Show. Honorable people, honorable nation.